name is Goce Armensky. I'm a full-time professor at the University of St. Cyril and Methodius at the Faculty of Computer Science and Engineering. My presentation will be about the use of digital tools and platforms in the area of policymaking. We all live in a time where the digital revolution is changing the societies where we live. Just in the past couple of years, we were facing appearance of a lot of new business models, new marketplaces, and an amazing innovative technologies, like for example, sharing economy and self-driving cars. The same tools, digital tools and platforms, also are making changes in the policy-making process, making it more effective, more innovative, and more inclusive. So during my presentation, I will address three specific topics where these digital tools and platforms is influencing the policy-making process. Specifically, the first one, the way that data is collected and processed. The second one is how the policy is proposed, created, and adopted. And the third one will be how the monitoring and evaluation of the policies is done. There will be a preview of the experiences of the European Union member states about the implementation of these digital tools in the policy-making process and the comparison between the European Union members and the countries in the Western Balkan. The conclusion will be that the Western Balkan countries are actually lagging behind, but that there are very interesting positive cases that can lead us the way forward toward the European Union member countries.
It was very interesting for me for these 2 days to listen to you talking about digital tools. I will start my presentation with the question, why do we need them? Why do we talk at all about digital tools and digital platforms? When I was young at the primary school, everybody was telling to us, you're living in an industrial revolution time, machines, factories, and all that. And then we all realized that we moved to another revolution, which basically completely changed our societies, and that is exactly the digital revolution. Digital revolution actually changed our societies so much that at this moment we cannot even understand our own kids, which are like 20-25 years old, younger than us, but they have different language, they use different tools, they communicate in different ways, they have different slang. So although we all feel kind of young, we feel that we are from another space. So the society has changed so much that actually the policy makers cannot follow. Just a few things which happened in the Western world, let's say in the modern world in the past years, which are still not present in our Western Balkan countries. For example, the crowdfunding. It's going on in the United States for years, but our policy makers does not allow crowdfunding. I personally live in a country where I cannot legally have an account in another country, even in a virtual bank, believe it or not. But we all know that 90% of our generation and younger people do have accounts on PayPal and Revolut and everybody. But if we ask the regulators and the policy makers, they will say, yeah, but the law is that you cannot have an account in another country. And that's still the case, at least in Macedonia. I don't think that the other countries it's very much different. So we have the sharing economy. We have the self-driving cars. In San Francisco, they are completely operational. Although in our region now I hear about flying cars, I'm very eager to see how the policy makers will make all the things needed for those flying cars. So things such, the digitalization and the digital revolution is actually moving so fast that there is no way that the policy makers can catch up the things which are happening on the ground. Another very important reason for using digital tools, at least in our region, is that all of our countries are in the process of EU accession. To be honest, because I am at the computer science faculty, I'm a a pure IT engineer. I finished the electrotechnical faculty, took my master and PhD in computer science, so I didn't know many things about the policy making until 7 years ago when I started to work for my Ministry of EU integration, when they asked me to design the integrated comprehensive platform for EU negotiations, which will connect everything with everything. We will see at the end how that idea looks like. And then when I started to understand how complicated this thing is, I understood that there are like tens of thousands of keys that needs to be transposed into our local legislation in a situation where even we don't know what legislation we have. Hundreds of institutions involved, thousands of people involved, which are with a turnover rate of more than 20% on a yearly basis, then we can ask ourselves, like, is it possible to be done? So if we don't use the digital tools, it's absolutely not possible, because the knowledge will stay into few people, which after they leave, we will not be able to track what is the status of anything we do in the country. Before going further, I would like to clarify these two different terms. We can very easily mix them up, and you can, in different texts and different literature, you can find the word digitization, digitalization, digital transformation. So digitization is doing the same thing, just with different tools. Digitalization is changing the process and introducing digital tools. So this is what we would like to do in our countries. Focus on digitalization. I've seen examples working in the region where the people would like the procedure to be the same, but use the computers. That's not the point. Even Miroslav yesterday was explaining a real example of what people are experiencing in Macedonia. My university last year, where I took my master and PhD, called me to bring a notarized copy of a PhD diploma which they issued to me. And this is the Faculty of Computer Science and Engineering, which is supposed to be the leading institution for digitalization in the country. We are all facing with nonsense situations every day. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to modernize the administration. We are trying to make the processes faster, reduce bureaucracy, not just digitize and then say, okay, now upload the notarized version of your diploma. No, you are not supposed to ask me for my diploma, because the system somehow, the country should automatically find out who I am, where I'm born, do I have an education, where is my diploma, where I am living at the moment, what property do I have, and everything else what a country will need to know from a person. That's perfectly well done in Estonia. Even 20 years ago when I was there in their e-government academy, they have this digital ID card. So as soon as they put the card on a card reader, you have everything about you on your screen. Who you are, your relatives, what you own, your bank accounts, your properties, your cars, your loans, your bank, everything about you is on one place. So why don't our countries work and think in the same way? Just one quick note on which I will pay attention a little bit later. All of you during the whole day were mentioning different IT tools which were implemented in this area, this area, this area. But all of them are isolated islands of using tools for doing some specific part of the job. Our countries will have to think about the big picture. You would like to create a policy from the beginning of the policy all the way to the adoption and publication of the official gazette. The whole process should be automated using different tools, and we should not ask data to be entered twice, 3 times, 5 times. Everything should be taken into consideration by the existing the existing data. Now, another thing which was not mentioned during these 2 days, but according to me is extremely important, is are we prepared actually to implement digital tools? I would say no. Absolutely no. Why do we do it? Because European Union is giving money to all of us to implement this system, that system. They push us to sign partnership in which we have to be, we have an obligation to do an open data portal and all of these things, but we actually are not prepared to do that. Why we are not prepared to do that? This is what European Union is doing at the moment. They do have a digital strategy in place, and for the implementation of the digital strategy, they call it a Digital Compass 2030, but it's actually an action plan for implementation of the strategy. The action plan has 4 actually pillars. We are almost dead in the first one. European Union needs 20 million IT experts in order to be sustainable in the next years, 6 years. They need 20 million people. Up until now, they don't have even 8 to 9 million IT skills. Now, the question will be, all of you know what is happening on the ground. Because they cannot achieve their strategy, they are buying our experts, okay? All of us are getting offers to move to Germany, Denmark, everywhere. So my point is, if we don't have IT engineers, what kind of digital tools we are going to implement? You're all coming from the institutions. How many IT people do you have inside? 1, 2, 0? In Macedonia, I think that maybe 70 to 80% of the ministries have non-IT engineer. Ministry of IT, actually, of digitalization, they are left with 3, 5. Okay, but the turnover was 80% in the last couple of years. I know because 50% of my students are leaving the country. And I know that it's the same situation in Serbia, in Bosnia, in Albania, everywhere. So before talking about the digital tools, digital policy, digital whatever, we need to find a way how to address that problem with the skills, with the people who are able to support the digitalization. The second thing is how actually digital administration is prepared with the digital skills. You're all working in institutions where I'm very sure that whenever they brought them a new toy to play with, they will say, no, like, please give me the paper. I'm used to it. So we have to work on the digital skills of the public administration. If the public administration is digitally literate, then they will accept these digital tools much more easier than the situation we currently have. Then the infrastructure. In order to be able to offer services, you need to have the infrastructure. Access to internet, mobile network, we are good. But all these systems which were discussed today, the so-called interoperability platforms, are underused. We saw yesterday 0.80 something requests, 5 institutions out of 50 using the interoperability platform, and everything is in place, which means that our infrastructure is not prepared for digital tools. When we implement a tool for management, for strategic management in the government, that tool should communicate through the e-government platform with the other institutions so that the data is transferred from one software to another software. If we don't use that platform, we are just replicating data. We are copying the same data into the few instances. So I thought that this is very important to say at the beginning, because without this, we cannot go further. And this is much more important than the implementation and development of a tool. And again, everything I see in the region is like, we get the donor money, somebody develop a software, they install the software and the company goes away and then the software is not used. There is no people to maintain the software. There is no money for upgrade the software. Nobody is pushing the public administration to use the software. So let's die the software so we can keep up the paperwork as we do in the past. However, we are all aware that we cannot continue without using the digital tools. Why? Because we need more efficient government. There are more policies coming into adoption. We would like to involve the citizens and everybody else into the process of adoption the policies, because let's make it clear what are the policies? The policies are rules. They are an agreement between the citizen in a specific country in this case. This is how we will live here. This is how we will regulate the taxi in our country, referring to the Uber legislation. And who is adopting them? The government. Who is the government? The government is somebody who we choose to represent us. The government is not something divided than us. But why they exist? Because in the past, actually, there are so many people that we cannot hear all of their voices. So we choose representatives, and these representatives are supposed to arrange the way we live. However, with the time, the distance between the political structures and the normal citizens became so big that now we don't trust them. But the digital tools can actually improve that, because we can get involved in everything now. Why? Because if they have a policy, we can vote with our mobile phone. Yes, we don't need you anymore. So your vote, you who represent us, will be a result of our votes on our mobile phones. Now we can come back where we all vote. So it has to be more transparent, and it has to include us in the process. And that's why it's important to basically implement tools, digital tools, which will provide these possibilities to us. Now, several areas where the digital tools can help. Let's start with the data collection. It was discussed before that actually data is the critical element for policy making. You make a decision based on evidence. You don't just invent a policy. In the past, where there were kings, the king was the head of the country and he was deciding from tomorrow we will live this way. Some more clever kings like Sultan, for example, the Magnificent, he was walking through the city covered in dirty clothes to listen to the people. What are the actual problems so that he can make better policies? Now we have a chance to collect data, a lot of data, and a clever government will be able to use that data to process it in a perfect manner so that they make an appropriate decisions. Before the digital tools, this was the way actually the policy making was done. And we all know that the influencers and the lobbyists were the main players there. But in the digital government and with the digital tools, that can be changed. Why? Because we have an extreme amount of data which is available to the policymakers, which we generate every day. We all use some kind of devices. Maybe you are all aware, maybe some of you is not aware what kind of data we provide to the government at the moment. So we basically provide a lot of things about us to the government. Just by wearing the mobile phones, they know where we are, who are we with. We post on Facebook, we post on Instagram, we post on TikTok. All these images can be digitally processed. They can know who are our friends, where are we living, how often we travel, and so on. So these wearable devices, which we all have, will continue to grow in the future. There will be necklaces with some medical devices. There will be other similar things which will provide medical data to our Ministry of Health so that they can say, okay, my population at the moment, a higher percentage of my population have a high blood pressure. I have to do something about it. So we provide the data. And that data is a basis for making decisions. How that currently is done, we talked about the open data portals, and what is very important is to digitalize, I call them, in the literature they are called basic registers. What is a basic register? That's the essence on which the country is based on. In a country there are citizens, that is the citizen register. There are addresses, that is the address register, which by the way in Macedonia does not exist. There is a property register, so I'm a citizen, I live on that address and I own this. Without these so-called basic registers, you cannot do anything. So digitalization of these registers will give you an opportunity to exchange data with the composed registers and then make a decision and do not duplicate the data. You all know in your countries that I have one address on my ID card, then when I go to my bank there is another address, when I go to the electricity company there is a third address, so nobody knows actually what data we have. Based on this data, we make a decision. How we make a decision? Either we do so-called data analytics and visualization softwares, or we use an AI now. AI is very interesting at the moment because the AI with these so-called large language models is able to extract knowledge from data. And they can, those tools can give us proposals. Look, I have identified several syndromes in my population in Australia, and I think we should react on that. So there are practical implementation in the world at the moment for making the decisions. With these identified issues, then the government reacts in the policy making. So the government should make a formulation, involve the people, and adopt some policy. So many of you were talking about the data gathering process, a lot of you about the monitoring process, but for me what was interesting, because I worked on that area in the last 3-4 years, was how actually a policy is made and how many institutions are involved, how the data is exchanged between these institutions, how many people from these institutions are involved. Is an extremely complicated process. Probably the way you work is somebody will create a Word file, send the Word over email, somebody will download, all of them will make changes, so you need someone else to compile the version. No, that's not the way it should be. Then there is a working group, so the working group doesn't know which version they are reviewing before adopting it. Then specific changes happen. Then you send a draft to the legislation secretariat. They gave an approval, but the government changed part of it, so you destroyed the table of concordance. Nobody knows in the Ministry of European Integration. Total chaos. So IT tools can be used in this process also. One of the tools which can be used are these interoperability platforms, because the data can be exchanged through these platforms. Every ministry can use its own solution. Every institution, Secretariat of Legislation, European Integration, government, everybody will have their own solution. However, the data will be transferred from one solution to another solution using these interoperability platforms. There are a lot of these platforms in Europe at the moment. I've mentioned the X-Road again from Estonia because it's most popular in Europe at the moment, and as an example of something which was done in a country very well. I talked about the citizen engagement into the policy creation, making, and adoption process. So it's citizens, it's NGOs, it's academia, and then at the end we have tools where we all vote. So it's not our representative in the parliament who don't talk to us anymore because he becomes somebody in the country, but we vote for something. And there are there are many examples in Europe about that. I have placed here only the Madrid one, where the citizens vote about the spendings of the city budget. Even last year when I was in Barcelona, I was very much surprised. The taxi driver from the airport to the hotel, he was explaining to me, he was an immigrant to Spain. He was explaining to me how he voted for his kids to play baseball in Spain. I was surprised, like baseball in Spain, I didn't know it exists. Yes, he said, there were 3 projects from the city. We all voted for them. And a surprise was that they will not build a playground, they will build a baseball stadium in Barcelona. Doesn't matter about the baseball, but he voted. While he was driving taxi, he voted for the decision of the council of the city of Barcelona. So basically the digital tools give us an opportunity to vote on something and don't live only on our representatives. We talked a lot about the monitoring and evaluation. Just an example of a tool used in Belgium. So they have a dashboard. They have a digital dashboard for monitoring of the KPIs, something similar like we saw this morning from Estonia. Now, all of this has challenges and concerns. The first question that I would usually get is, what about the privacy? Yes, the government is exchanging data. They know everything. They use it for like governmental purposes, but sometime, now I don't know if I have time, but I will tell you a funny story about a person I worked with in the tax administration. She was from Slovenia. She was talking about the data privacy. She said, you know, when you're in the tax administration, you have access to everything. So she said, a colleague of mine was sitting in a cafe bar outside and he saw a beautiful girl. And he said, ooh, but she left. So when she left, he saw the plate on the car. And then he went at work. He typed the plate of the car. He saw who owns the car. It was a man. So he assumed that it's her father. So he checked him. Okay, he has a daughter. Then, of course, he saw how much money they have and all these things. And he found her. Of course, he was punished because he didn't know that the system logs the access while you're accessing. But it's scary. To be honest, it is scary. So if you think about all the data we leave to the governments and we leave to these applications we are using every day, it is scary. We all know the example of Cambridge Analytica. Probably if you don't know, that was a point of time when Facebook was supposed to be dead. That was the Brexit, the usage of the information we all give to Facebook for the purposes of Brexit. And there is a movie about it, just watch the movie. And the movie is a real example of what happened and how they actually influenced Brexit. To be honest, I personally was working on a project analyzing the election result in a country only by the data on Facebook. The difference was 1 to 2.5% with the end result. So the data privacy is extremely problematic. And then the digital divide. If you're implementing digital tools, self-driving cars, flying cars and all these things, I mean, we all have an older population. We have countries which are not digitally literate. So implementing technology will mean let them behind. We have to be very careful to educate the people and then implement something. And I know that AI is a big buzzword in the last few years, but let's be very clear about it. Even from Estonia, they told us we try to implement something, but it's not ready. Yeah, because AI is not a miracle. Come on. AI makes mistakes. AI gives you a proposal based on the way the AI is trained. If you train the AI wrongly, you will get wrong results. Don't believe that now I will get an AI and I will get an answer for everything. What comes next? There are already projects even in the region, smart cities, Internet of Things. Smart cities, everything will be recorded in the city. The mayors will know everything about what's happening, in which part of the city, so based on these data, they will make meaningful decisions. Blockchain is something which is very interesting, that will increase the trust in the policy making because the basics of the blockchain is so-called immutable records. Nobody can deny that you own the house. Nobody can deny that you've made the transaction, and so on. And then again, further use of artificial intelligence. Only a few words about where is EU, where are we in the game at the moment. We have a saying, što južnije to tužnije. Going south, going to translate it, as soon as you go south, the things are worse. So the same is in the EU, so it's not only in ex-Yugoslavia. The leaders are the Scandinavian countries. So in all of these 4 slides, you will see that Estonia, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, and Norway are on the top. This is how many digital services they have. Then the readiness for open data, then the public participation in the policy making, and the 4th one is using of artificial intelligence in the decision of policy making. So it really goes like that. So the Scandinavians, then France and Germany are following, and then our friends from Spain, Italy, and Greece. Now, where are we? Very quickly, because most of the things were already said by you during the day. I was doing with Goran Svilanovic last year a comprehensive study about the policy making and use of digital tools in the policy making. My part was, of course, the digital part. So very quickly, the findings. Albania, we had a very good presentation this morning. The only thing that you didn't mention is the integrated IT platform for EU integration, which you just implemented this year. So that's a very, very new actually tool that you do have. What is interesting is that the 2 systems you mentioned are connected between each other. Bosnia is interesting because at Bosnia at some point they did have an interoperability platform available on the whole country. Currently it only works in Republika Srpska. At the moment there is an ongoing project for digitalization and implementation of a new e-government platform. They do not have an IT tool for coordination of public policies, but they do have an IT system at the Agency for Directorate for European Integration. 3 modules. They do have all these other things related to open data, consultations, and so on. Kosovo. These are the systems that Kosovo has. They don't have a comprehensive system for management of public policies. They have introduced last year an IT tool for drafting of legislation. And what is interesting, and it was not mentioned this morning, was all of you were talking about e-consultations, but in Kosovo they have e-participation. E-participation means that I'm able to connect into my parliament website and propose something to my representatives. So that's another tool which can be used for better policy making. So e-participation. It's not just that I'm commenting already drafted laws, but I'm the one who proposes something. Montenegro, they already had systems, unfortunately, because of the thing which happened 2 years ago, because of the hacking attack. They came back to the paperwork, but they're coming back during the last year. You already mentioned the both systems. There is another system in the Ministry for EU integration right now, which is used on a daily basis. We had just had a presentation about the unified information system. What I would suggest in Serbia is connect that system with the tools that are used in the Ministry for EU integration, because they have to be connected. When you do a policies, it has to be reflected in the EU agenda. At the moment, these 2 systems do not communicate between each other. In Macedonia, what I want to emphasize is that development of this new integrated NPA portal, which consists of many tools which unites all the functionalities for EU integration. And then I will end up with with a presentation with one diagram. Okay, a few more minutes and we will be done. So this is the issue with the IT stuff. I have a couple of recommendations how countries can overcome that issue. And then the third conclusion with the analysis from the region is that we all work as an isolated islands. Donors finance the same projects in different countries, and we all reinvent the wheel all the time. We don't share our experience between us. We don't share even the solutions which are developed in one country to another country, although we have more or less similar legal system and we are coming from the very similar background. So this has to be addressed in a way in the future. And what I am proposing is this so-called a general model for digitalization of public policies, where we have an architecture, a digital architecture of a country where all basic registers will be digitalized and available through the interoperability platform. There will be an e-government portal for businesses, citizens, through which they can access whatever service they need to have, and those services will be digitalized. Then the creation of the policy is on this side. So there will be a tool for strategic policy planning. There will be a tool for coordination of public policies. Programs should be based on the strategy. So we are programming for something, not just inventing something. All of that should be connected to the EU integration process. It's really ununderstandable to make policies without transposing these policies into EU acquis. So the EU integrated platform will have to communicate to the public, to communicate to the Secretariat for Legislation, then to communicate with the government, then communicate with the parliament, and then communicate with the official gazette. Everything which will have to be aligned by exchanging data. And for example, when somebody in the government asks how much we are aligned with EU in this area, by asking these systems, he will get a number. If he wants the details, then he will even get the details. These acquis are transposed into this local legislation. This is the translation of European acquis. This is the translation of our acquis, and so on and so on. There will be a monitoring framework. There has to be a monitoring framework where all this data will go into, but not retyping the data. The data will stay in each of these applications. It will just ask for the data through the government gateway. The e-consultations are here, the governmental bodies participate, the e-participation is here, even the budgeting, which has to be connected to the coordination and planning of public policies, the official gazette where the final laws are published, and of course the parliaments, which are currently in our countries completely disconnected from anything. They don't communicate. The studies showed that parliaments do not communicate with anybody. So there are cases like this. The EU ministry is aligning a key, proposing a new policy. The policy goes to the secretariat. They create table of concordance, harmonization table. The legislation secretariat approves it, goes to the government is approving that, goes to the parliament, and then suddenly some member of parliament on the session raises a hand, changes a sentence in an article, and then automatically destroys the complete transposition of the law with the EU acquis. Nobody knows because they are disconnected at the moment. So this is one model which I'm proposing, which is applicable to all of these countries. And then the next step, which is very obvious in the region, believe me, they will make us talk between each other. That's the next step, that's the next thing which will happen in the region. It's enough of small countries. If you see all the projects in the future are related to the WB6, regional projects. That means that when I'm going to Sarajevo or to Belgrade, I'm giving my Macedonian ID card and I say, I would like to register a company. They put the card somewhere, their service bus, Serbian service bus, is communicating with Macedonia through our service bus. They go to these basic registers and say, okay, Goci is really a citizen of Macedonia, he's not convicted, he doesn't own taxes, whatever. The data will be returned to the Serbian administration and they will issue to me any document which I will ask for. So when we interconnect these models on a regional level, then we can say that we have a digital tools implemented into our societies.